Well, let's talk about Robyn Leigh Lear, who is our feature tonight. And let's get her. So, Robyn Leigh Lear has her roots in the South, okay, between Savannah and North Carolina. She's also the creative director for April Gloaming, okay, which is a press here in Nashville. Her book, which is fantastic, which I have purchased, is Ekphrasis as Divination, okay? And I don't know if she's going to be reading, we'll be talking about that tonight because we're going to interview her, but she's going to read some poems and discuss that work and just bless the space with her badassedness, basically. So, first thing we do, after we do our intros at National Poetry Party, we have our poet, our featured poet, come up and read a poem. So we would love to have Robyn come up and, introduce us with a poem, and let's hear it for Robyn Leigh Lear.
Hello, I'm Robyn Leigh Lear. I'm going to read one poem from my collection, Ekphrasis as Divination. And beforehand, it's a pretty experimental work in that it's composed almost entirely in found language. And the language that I used was a part of this research and sort of journey that I went on to better understand divinatory card reading. My friend Theo Hall designed an entire world and deck of divinatory cards. They also wrote, I think, over like 200,000 words worth of myth that relates to their cards. And they gifted me and Meg Wade a copy of their deck of fortune-telling cards. And Meg Wade actually read my future, or my fortune, using Theo's cards. And so this was sort of a journey that I went on to better understand the practice itself. And I think something that's important to know about the book is that I went into it to disprove it, and I don't know that I did. So I'm going to read just one poem from the work to start us off. And I will call up Christine. Will you come up so I can read your card for you?
Sweet.
Christine, everyone. Round of applause.
So sit and meditate with this image, and then I'll divine your poems. Oh, you can do it right there. Perfect. The title of this poem is When Someone Told Me a Joke Years Before I Started Listening. The Young Tin Wizard. The moon pours down influences, destroying the old convention that it is sane to be an artist. Between the world yawns a gulf which few can cross, so I imagine the act of flying and discover the dead land looks like lilacs, scattered out, stirring with the roots of desire. If I libel my own muse as a relic of the day, dull memories still pursue. For a butterfly winging its way cannot grow to be a moth, and I cannot occupy paradise or an earthly body with a serpent twining round my neck for the world. Thank you.
So that's all you get for now. Are you still going? My bad. I'm gonna hide.
That's a good kind of error, Andrew. That was good.
Next, can I call Clyde Watkins? This is your present. And it's the 4th. The veil or mask perpetuates change from lower to higher, and this is more fitly represented and rectified as these apocalyptic visions. If I should die, said I to myself, is a crude notion my reaping skeleton knows. I have left no immortal work behind me, nothing which signifies life. Just the inner work is impossible to make my friends proud of my memory. Crude notion of the skeleton and specter exchanging a reality for a blind dreamland, where truth and her feeling can and cannot be felt, while prelate hands clasp await. A crude notion reaps our skeletons again and again and again to rattle our abandoned bones. Ooh, thank you so much. And last, we have our future. And Louisa, do you mind? And this is the joke. I have just written my own muse, and she tells me not to be uneasy about arbitrary letters, eccentricity, and manner. This is simply the card of human love. Here you are, she says, and who might you be? With a warm greeting between vice and virtue. Don't worry, she laughs and closes her eyes and fits her hands around her own neck. In a sense, this card is a mystery, a change in the form of consciousness. Just don't tell, she says with a wink. It will be our secret. Now here comes the real show. Thank you,
So this is okay. Thank you. All right. Please thank Robyn Leigh Lear, everyone.
Okay, so every time we have a poet here, we're super into their work, and we also want to ask them some questions, right, about their process and their life and stuff like that. So we're going to ask Robyn a few questions about, poetry and life and stuff like that, and let's see what comes from that. So that's our next feature here. Okay? You sit there? Okay. I'm going to go like this.
You know what? Can I just launch with that?
Launch with that.
Yeah, so apologies for the awkward moment where I thought that Robyn was done, but the moment it happened, I thought this is actually illustrative of part of what you're doing, is that it's really unique. I mean, I've never seen a poet put together a collection in this way, and so no surprise that someone's like, oh, we're done, or oh, we're not done, or oh, we're going here, we're going there, and it's not it's unclear in a good way where you're going. So can you just talk about the structure of this book and how it works? Because it's It's unique. It's singular.
Yeah. So it started off with me wanting to write Hallie. And I at first was going to actually do one based off of Frida Kahlo's cookbook, translated into English. And so that I'm still playing around with the idea that I had for that. But I believe a lot in sort of following where the muse or the inspiration guides you. And so when Theo gave me this deck of cards out of just the blue, I realized that this was what I actually wanted to begin to research. And so part of it came from this desire to find meaning and purpose during COVID. And I realized that really like purpose and meaning and the reason to continue at all for me is always fueled by community. And this book became more of a celebration of community than anything else. And so I just sort of trusted where the process took me, and I ended up then engaging with T.S. Eliot, which is funny because I've always talked about that guy being a real bastard.
It's kind of true.
And then Keats.
Also a bastard.
And
Okay. Yeah.
he was
I was
a
like,
star.
wait, what?
Keats
Hold
was
on
a
there.
star.
Yeah.
He had a feat thing too.
Elliot has a C.
He does
Oh, my.
Keats and Feats. There's an essay about
Keats
it.
All right.
and Feats.
It's rather unfortunate.
But I then, and through the process, then just started collecting these phrases that I discovered and then wove them together to create a sort of divinatory reading off of the images that Theo had created. And I liked the idea of color coding because it's what I call the voice chorus. That for the curious reader, I give you the code to be able to decipher. But for those of you who instead want to sort of like trust the sort of language soup that I present you with, you don't have to, and instead you can experience the sort of unity of language and voice, but know that there's a sort of distinction by seeing the colored text that they represent.
So in the book, the text is not black. I mean, it's various colors, and those colors you can follow from page to page. But you also read down. You're not okay. That's pretty cool. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So when I read the book, I saw like the color coding, and I paid attention to it, but I also wanted to bypass it
Yeah.
because it seemed in the spirit of what you wanted to do, you know, and have the reader experience this book, and then, you know, later, if he or she or they wants to go back to, you know, who's speaking or who's found poetry this is, or the black print where, you know, you're making sense of this language. And I just kind of let that wash over me, and I didn't pay attention too much to the colors. And one thing I was struck by was just the experience that I had while reading the book is very unlike most experiences I've had, and this is why one reason I would encourage you to pick up this book, because a lot of times we buy a book and someone has mastered that content, right, and has prepared it, and it's given it to you, and it's like a very it's from a very firm point of view, right? And that is not Robyn's book. Robyn's book is well researched and engaging and spiritual, but it kind of allows you to, it washes over you in the way that you experience it. And I really liked that about your book. One question I have is when you were picking out the found poetry, whether it's Keats or Eliot or you know, these different colors, like how did you kind of land on these different poets, or, you know, like, okay, that's who I'm going to bring into the book.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So how I found the research was, one of the sources is Waite, and he writes the ancient art of card reading, and then another text later on, the art of the Bohemian through card reading. And I used his work to sort of ground me. And actually, my dear friend Erica Arcadia helped me curate the tarot equivalent of Theo's cards. Theo's work is sort of what brings everything together, ties it together, and is helpful because it was also the most contemporary text.
Okay.
Something I struggled with is almost all of the found language came from very archaic works, and so it can be hard to keep that engaging. And then I found Keats because for me, Keats is the father of Crassus, right? Ode on
Krishna, yeah.
And I realized that I had to then find the father of divination. And the actual text that I used to research tarot was the same text that T.S. Eliot used to research tarot to write The Wasteland. And so he becomes the father of divination and represents that in it. And then Kandinsky is the art of color, is the father of art and color, right? And I then weave it together through the black text, which is the poet sort of interceding to make sense of this sort of voice chorus. And I used black as the poet's text because Theo actually doesn't use any black at all in any of their work for Young World.
Okay.
And so it is this sort of foreign voice and foreign experience that comes in and pulls it together, if that makes sense.
I like the contrast.
Yeah.
Some of the colors are like when I'm thinking about licorice color or ocean color.
Yeah.
Black is stark,
Mhm.
and the contrast between those two are like, okay, so this is the poet making sense of these languages.
Well, it's this idea too that like, how much would we receive language differently if we were reading white text on a black page?
Right.
And then when we bring in this sort of like spectrum of possibilities by having red text and ocean colored text and amethyst colored text. And so what then is there this other layer of like experience that you're getting pulled from, and then how does that also change the way that you read?
Yeah. It has that like, it's a cipher.
Yes.
It's pretty fascinating. It's a cipher that no one's ever come up with before, I don't think.
There is a poet, DJ Savarese, who uses colored text in one of his works. But it's in a very different way. In more that
Right, yeah. I've got two questions for you.
Okay.
Specifically, okay, so,
Cool question.
yeah, I know. Thank you, Eric. In marketing this event, I stole everything from your Facebook and your Instagram, and thank you for being a good sport. Didn't get any complaints, thank you, and that's happened before. And as I was going through it, all I could think consistently was, Robyn Leigh Lear is so fucking cool. Like, what have I done wrong? Like, I need to emulate Robyn Leigh Lear. You know, I mean, I'm being completely serious. Like, you've lived a lot of different lives, and I did not know that until I really went through and looked at the images, which is a neat experience because this is an infographic book, right? Teach me your ways. How are you so cool?
Tell us your secret.
You need to grow up in a very destitute, horrible place.
I did that.
Have no access to capital.
Okay.
I mostly did that.
And then have a really
Yeah.
I think part of what has like shaped who I am is that I'm the daughter of an adopted mother. So the idea of creating family was inherently a part of who I was, if that makes sense.
Like creating it in a non-traditional way.
Yeah, right?
Sure, I
Like,
got you. Yeah.
I mean, what really is lineage if it's not friendship and
Yeah.
community, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then needing that community to help me survive. And that's why I had a lot of crisis about this book before it came out, because it's so fucking weird. And I was like, oh, I'm crazy. Everyone's gonna think I'm crazy.
Definitely crazy.
And then I mean, I am crazy. But I realized, I was like, it's so me, the fact that my first book attempts to entirely deconstruct and decenter myself, and then engage with and celebrate this community of voices that I see as my family. I see as part of me, if that makes sense.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
And then, you just go work in a salmon cannery in Alaska and, try not to, get cold feet when it's the only,
Good try.
it's the only bar for 900 square miles.
Where in Alaska?
Dillingham. When you land, you walk out and there's a big sign that says, "Welcome to the front porch of America." And I was like, "Oh, welcome to the foreskin of America." Wow.
I love foreskin. My kids are in India,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, I'm stepdad,
Uh-huh.
so
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Yeah, so you
Karen is
construct
Indian.
family too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Here.
I feel like we could talk to you for the next hour about your book, but last question for folks here who would be interested in writing their own phrastic poems, right? Poems based on an image or a work of art or some scene that you've experienced that you can't get out of your head, that kind of thing. What advice would you give them?
I would first say that all poetry is ekphrasis. Because nobody writes the poem in the moment, right? I mean, the beats try and say that they do, but it's like, you're full of shit. And so we're always reflecting back on an image or a memory or a sound. And so I think the best advice that I would give is just to let yourself be. And I think that that's what I'm trying to do, in a sense, is learning to let myself just be present on the page. I didn't notice as much until one of the readers of the collection, CIAP, he actually pointed out to me that it engages more with Ars Poetica almost than ekphrasis. And I thought that was so interesting. Ars Poetica is the art of writing poetry on the art of writing poetry.
It's almost a ballad to Ars Poetica.
Yeah.
It's so right, obvious. I
Yeah.
never thought of it. Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting because I have a really intense fear of being in fixed form, right? The idea that once I create it and put it out, then it can't just be anymore. It becomes this fixed thing. And that the Robyn of 10 years ago might not be the Robyn in 40 years in the future. And so how do I live with the fact that there's this other voice out there by just being cool?
Sorry about that.
So this is Velasa Lorca, and it keeps us honest and interrupts Robyn almost as well as I do. We're going to move on to the next segment. Everybody, please give Robyn Leigh Lear a round of applause. Thank you so much. Fantastic.
We're gonna take about a 5-6 minute break. Go to your bathroom, go to your dab bar. Go check out our various vendors. Get some coffee. Get some coffee.
Get some coffee.
And we'll be right back in
Have a
about
psychic
5
reading.
minutes.